For thousands of years, we've been under the impression that the Bible was intended to be taken seriously. Finally, a new translation that changes all of that. This is Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible! Welcome to Chapter 8 of Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible with me, David Tuckman. We're coming to you live from New York City's Parkside Lounge. In each episode of this monthly podcast, a special guest joins me and tries to read my own personal translation of the Old Testament from the original Hebrew while I make fun of it. Today is Monday, May 20th, 2013, and the world is falling apart. The past month since we last recorded this has just been like devastating news article after news article. Washington is in a disaster. People are dying everywhere. Horses are racing. It's just awful. So why not go into the back of a bar and listen to somebody mock the world's oldest or the world's most important holy book? I think that's a great thing to do. In the past month, me personally, I've released some comedy projects. I released a comedy single. It's on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/David-Tuckman. I don't know why I chose hyphen instead of underscore or whatever. It is a dramatic reading of a fan fiction from The Wire between Season 1 and Season 2, and I'm very proud of it, and I'd love if you could check it out and listen to it. I'm also on Twitter, David_Tuckman, but that's not important. What's important is podcast news. There are a lot of things that have been going on with this podcast that I'm very excited about. Last month I was remiss and I didn't mention that Oh My God, What the Fuck Bible was featured on New Voices, which is a campus-based Jewish online magazine, newvoices.org. I was interviewed by a writer named Katie Damon. The interview is up there. I'm really proud of it and really excited by it. I hit the 4,000 download mark. So 4,000 people have downloaded this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. But more importantly, I'm working diligently to translate this entire thing. I'm almost done with Genesis. I have 9 chapters left in Genesis, so I'm very, very close to at least finishing the first book of this insane project. So thank you everyone for listening, for pushing me on. Last but not least, in the past month I've been stepping up promotion and printing up flyers and stickers, which are available at all live shows from now on. These are religious tracts or brochures. You can pick them up and read them if you come to a live show. You can put stickers all over your holy books and Sidurim or prayer books if you want. They're wonderful. As always, find us on Facebook, facebook.com/OMGBible, Twitter at OMGWTFBIBLE, and then OMGWTFBIBLE.com. You can listen on Stitcher, Smart Radio, iTunes, any podcast app that you want. Please, if you like this show, share it with your friends. I mean, that's the best way that this thing spreads, through word of mouth, and write a review on iTunes. Anyway, that's enough preamble. Let's bring our guest on stage. Are you guys ready for your guest? She is a human being. She is a writer and a blogger. Please welcome to stage Julie Sugar. Julie, it's great to see you.
Great to be here.
Who just walked into the room? Do you see that?
Well, I don't want to embarrass him, but my boyfriend just walked into the room.
Let's hear it for that. As I called you to the stage, so he missed all the boring David Tuckman part and got right to the Julie.
He was actually waiting for you to stop talking and then came in.
That makes sense. My girlfriend does the same thing. Julie, I wanted to tell you, you were actually one of the first people I had in mind to have on as a guest when I decided to do this as a live show. So I'm really, really excited to have you read this chapter.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's a really wacky one. And we'll get to it in a minute. But before we do, I wanted to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Just so our audience gets to know you, gets to know who you are. Are you Jewish?
I am.
Okay. How Jewish are you? What's your relationship with the Jewish faith, so that we know where you're coming from as you read this thing?
It's very complicated.
Okay.
I blogged last year for Lilith magazine about my various religious crises. I grew up totally secular, became more observant in my late teens and early 20s, then recently became less observant, and even more recently have started becoming more observant again.
I think I follow that. Okay.
I identify as a seeker. I feel comfortable in a lot of different communities. I'm most often found in a modern Orthodox community, and consider myself an activist and a feminist and an ally in general, but also in that world.
This is something that's been happening in the news recently. I wasn't going to ask you, but it just popped into my head. How do you feel about Women of the Wall, which is a movement that's trying to push for worship by women at the Kotel?
I support them. I think it's really sad and scary, some of the reactions to them.
Yeah. Very violent reactions, which is...
Very violent reactions.
Crazy.
I understand that people have different beliefs and different faiths and different interpretations, but what moves someone to actually literally stone another human being? I like, what goes through someone's mind
for wanting
when
to,
they pick up a stone and throw it? Like, I just, it's very hard for me to understand. As tolerant as I am, I just can't tolerate that being expressed as, physical harassment towards another human being.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now that we've gotten very heavy, what's your relationship with the Bible, with this book? Have you ever read the entire thing straight through? Because I have not.
I think I'm supposed to have read the entire thing straight through. I go to shul, I go to synagogue. I try to go every week, and every week, if I show up early enough, they're reading the weekly Torah portion, the Parsha. I don't make it, though, every week to shul, to synagogue, and I don't always make it early enough. And sometimes when I travel, like the summer months...
Are you sure you want to be saying this on the podcast?
The summer months are a little bit of a blur. But I consider myself fairly familiar with the Torah, with the Old Testament.
What is your favorite, if you had to choose one, what is your favorite story or passage from this tome?
My Hebrew name is Leah, and I don't know if favorite is the right word exactly, because a lot of her story is very sad, but I really resonate a lot with the story of Leah and Rachel and Jacob. Okay,
cool. Unfortunately, that's like a couple months away. It's too bad you're not reading that. But this is a really, really fun chapter. One last question before we get into it. What is your earliest memory of me? This is something I ask all my guests to make them uncomfortable.
This is really good. So, as you know, David, we went to Hunter College together. My first memory of you, I don't remember what the very first one was, but I just remember like having met you somewhere around school, and then I would like see you in the cafeteria or in the hallways.
I accidentally
and you were sort of
stalked
like,
you.
Yeah, you were like looking at me like bizarrely, but we didn't really know each other. And I think the Facebook was new back then, and we became Facebook friends. And I wrote to you and I said, "Are you stalking me?" and you said yes.
Yes, I was.
And that was the first memory. Although a very early memory is that you also reviewed a couple plays of mine that were produced by Hunter College.
Yes.
My first and last
for a newspaper,
review.
an actual publication,
which then never got published.
Yes.
Hunter College Envoy, everybody.
Okay. Yes, no, I think I found you on Facebook probably because I reviewed you in the newspaper.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yes, not because I was...
So my first memory then is of you stalking me.
Yes, it was.
Great.
And with that, Chapter 8. Are you guys ready for Torah? A loose trend. Oh, so before we go, I've noticed I've made it a little difficult by forcing people to listen to all the previous episodes before they can move on to a new one. So I think starting this month, I'm going to give you a little recap before I move on, so that in case you haven't read the hours of Bible that's happened beforehand, you sort of know what's going on. So previously in the Bible, Jehovah promised Avraham a son, destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot, having escaped those cities with his 2 daughters, was given wine in a cave by them, Then they fucked him and got pregnant. Anyway, this is Torah, chapter 8, in which a plotline is recycled, and Avraham gives us a primer in how to be a bad dad.
Avraham traveled from there.
There being his treehouse in Memre. No context because that's what this thing does.
He went to the land of Negev between Kadesh and Shur and settled in Gerar. She is my sister, he said about his woman Sarah when he got there. So Avimelech, the king of Gerar, sent for her and took her.
If you recall, this happened before when Avraham at that point and Sarai went to Mitzrayim or Egypt to escape a famine. This whole thing was like 3 paragraphs when it happened in Mitzrayim because even the author knows this thing happened before.
That's right. That night, Yehovah came to Avimelech in a dream. You will die on top of the woman you've taken, for she already has an owner.
An owner.
But Avimelech hadn't even gone near her. My master, he said, will you kill those who are innocent? The guy told me she was his sister. And even she told me he was her brother. I've done this with an innocent heart and clean hands.
I promise I washed my hands first.
I knew that, God said. I knew your heart was innocent.
Sure you did, God.
That's why I stopped you from sinning against me. I didn't let you touch her. Now, you should give that man his woman back, because he is a prophet.
So right now God is speaking directly to Avimelech. Doesn't that also make him a prophet?
And he will pray for you and save your life. If you don't give her back, I will definitely kill you and everything you have.
Definitely.
Avimelech woke that morning and called to all his servants. He repeated everything that had happened into their ears. These men were now really scared. Why have you done this to us? Avimelech shouted at Avraham. How have I sinned toward you? You have brought a great sin upon myself and my kingdom. You've done something with me that is not done.
Seriously, what are you doing? This is the second time.
What have you seen that led you to do this? I told myself, Avraham said, that God is not feared in this place, and I thought you would kill me over the matter of my woman. Also, she is kind of my sister. She's my father's daughter, though not the daughter of my mother.
Well, no, she's your brother's daughter, as we read much earlier, which makes it less weird.
And I took her as my woman. Then, when Yehovah led me out of my father's house, I told her, please do this kindness for me. Whenever we get to a new place, tell them I'm your brother.
I like how he just kind of casually drops in the part where some god named Yehovah told him to leave his father's house. Like, that's a normal thing that happens.
Avimelech gave sheep, cattle, slaves, and lady slaves to Avraham.
Why? Why?
Avimelech also returned Sarah, Avraham's woman, to him. Behold, Avimelech said, my entire land is before you. You may settle in whichever area excites your eye. I gave your brother 1,000 pieces of silver, he told Sarah.
He still calls him her brother.
Let it cover the eyes of those who are with you. You are vindicated before all.
Wait, is this blackmail?
Avraham prayed. Yehovah healed Avimelech, his women, and his slave girls, and they all had children. You see, God had plugged up the uteri of all the women in Avimelech's house because of what happened with Sarah, the woman of Avraham.
By the way, so it mentions here that Avimelech never touched Sarah. When this happened in Mitzrayim, it never mentions that Paro didn't touch Sarah, which means they totally fucked.
Yehovah remembered what he'd said to Sarah and did what he'd promised. Sarah grew pregnant and birthed a son to Avraham in his old age and at the time Yehovah had told him. Avraham called the son Sarah had given him Yitzchak and circumcised him on his 8th day as God had commanded. Avraham was 100 years old when Yitzchak, his son, was born.
And Sarah, who cares?
Yehovah has given me laughter, Sarah said. Everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. Who would have told Avraham that Sarah would be suckling sons? I popped out a son for him in his old age. The son grew and was weaned. Avraham made a great feast on the day of Yitzchak's weaning. At the party, Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Mitzrite and Avraham laughing. "Chase away this servant and her son," Sarah said to Avraham.
Didn't you want everyone to be laughing?
"This servant's son shall not inherit with my son, Yitzchak."
Sorry, I just wanted to point out, I think I made a mistake. It was Hagar and Ishmael laughing, most likely, right?
Oh.
Yeah, Hagar's son, so I apologize for that.
I thought they were just sort of like flirting.
Yeah, maybe. It could be. I will correct that online if that's a mistake. Hi there, David Tuckman here, correcting this issue in the podcast so that you don't have to go to the internet to figure this out. The way that I had written this in the podcast was actually correct. It says, at the party, Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Mitzri and Avraham laughing. That is technically correct, however it is ambiguous. The original Hebrew says, Vatere Sarah et ben Hagar ha-Mitzrit asher yada la-Avraham mitzachek. What that means is that Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Mitzrit, who she had born to Avraham, laughing. So I apologize for that. It means that Ishmael was the only one laughing, and he was born to Hagar the Mitzrit and Avraham. Sorry about that. Anyway, back to the story.
This bugged Avraham a lot because it was his son. "Don't worry so much over the servant and the boy," Yehovah told Avraham.
Yeah, he's just your firstborn son.
"Whatever Sarah says, listen to her, since your progeny shall be known in Yitzchak. But since he is your offspring, I will also make the son of the servant into a great nation." When he woke in the morning, Avraham took bread and a skin of water to Hagar. He put them on her and the boy's shoulders and sent them off. They left and wandered in the wilderness until they reached Beersheba. When the water in the skin was finished, Hagar hid the boy under one of the bushes. She walked away from him and sat about the distance a bowshot might travel. "I do not want to be able to see the boy die," she said. She raised her voice and cried.
This is terrible. This is what God told Avraham to do.
Yehovah heard the voice of the child.
God's instructions are bad.
"What is it, Hagar?" an angel of God called out from the sky. "Don't be afraid. God has heard the child's voice and knows he is there. Get up and go to the boy. Your hand will be strengthened because he will be made into a great nation." Yehovah opened Hagar's eyes. She saw a well.
So this is interesting because it says that Yehovah opened her eyes and she saw a well. It doesn't say that he created a well, which he could totally do because he's God and he made the entire world. So the well was already there, and Hagar was either too distraught to notice it in her desperate search for water, which doesn't make sense, or God didn't let her see it until he opened her eyes. Either way, this is a pretty lame miracle. So, yeah.
Hagar went to the well and filled the water skin. Then she sated the boy's thirst. Yehovah was with the boy, who grew and lived in the wilderness, becoming a hunter with bow and arrow. He lived in the desert of Paran and took a Mitzrayim woman with him.
He wouldn't be starving if he lived in the desert.
Sounds pretty good, actually. At this time, Avimelech and Pechol, the chief of Tzvoah, approached Avraham. "Yehovah is with you in everything you do," they said. "Swear to us now you will not lie to our children or to our grandchildren."
You might be wondering why they're so anxious that Avraham not lie to their children or grandchildren. Maybe it's because he keeps lying to people.
"We shall return your kindness to you and let you dwell in our land." "I swear," Avraham said. Then he got up in Avimelech's grill about a well that had been stolen by the king's workers.
How do you steal a well?
It's in the Bible.
Okay.
"I have no idea who did this," Avimelech said, "and you didn't tell me. This is the first I'm hearing about it." Avraham gave sheep and oxen to Avimelech, and the two men entered into a treaty.
What about Pichol? He must be like sad in the corner there.
Then Avraham set 7 ewes off by themselves. "What's with the 7 ewes you've separated?" Avimelech asked. "Please take these 7 ewes from me as testimony that I dug this well."
I feel like courtrooms back then must have been super smelly.
For this reason, that place is now called Beersheba.
So Be'er means well, and Sheva in Hebrew means 7. Also, how is it only now being named Beersheba if we just saw Hagar and Ishmael hanging out there?
There
Continuity.
There they both swore to each other. Once the treaty was settled, Avimelech and Pichol, the chief of Tzfoah, got up and went back to the land of the Plishtim. Avraham planted a tamarisk tree.
Again, nobody knows what a tamarisk tree is.
In Beersheba, and called out the name of Yehovah, Lord of the world. He lived in the land of the Plishtim for lots of days. After these things, God decided to test Avraham. Avraham, God said. Here I am, Avraham said. Take Yitzchak, the only son that you love, and go to the land of Moriah.
It's a good thing Ishmael wasn't around to find out his father didn't love him.
There, raise him as a sacrifice on one of the mountains. I'll show you which one. The next morning, Avraham woke up, saddled his donkey, and collected 2 of his wards and his son Yitzchak.
So last month, before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, or Amorah, when God told Avraham that he was going to do that, Avraham spent like a whole passage arguing with God, telling him to stop doing that, or to not do that, to save the city. But when God asked Avraham to murder his only son, or the son that he loves, sure.
They split a tree for the Olah offering, got up, and set off to the place God told them.
Again, this is something that was in chapter 3. An Olah offering is an offering that is completely consumed by the sky. It goes up completely to God because it is a burnt offering. The entire offering is burnt, so it rises up to God.
On the 3rd day, Avraham lifted his eyes and saw the place from a distance.
Sure, move on.
Stay here with the donkey, Avraham told his 2 wards. I will go up there with the boy. We will bow down, and we will return to you.
Avraham, you probably didn't mean to use the word we there, did you?
Avraham gave Yitzhak the wood and carried the fire and the knife in his own hand. The 2 walked together. Dad, Yitzhak said. I am here, my son, Avraham said. I see the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb we're going to sacrifice? God will show us the lamb we'll sacrifice, my son. Oh. The 2 walked together.
Oh. It's good pacing, though, don't you think? Yeah.
Well translated.
No, it's the original. That was all the original. I was translating. I was like, wow, this is a well-written section.
Right. Well done.
Good job, God.
Compliments to the chef. When they reached the place God had described, Avraham built the altar and arranged the wood. He tied up Yitzhak and placed him on the altar, atop the wood. Avraham raised the knife in his hand, preparing to slaughter his son. Avraham, an angel of Yehovah called out from the sky. I am here, Avraham said. Do not set your hand upon the boy, the angel said.
So, I didn't mention before, there's this whole thing about there being 2 God characters. There's Elohim, which is the vengeful, mean one, and then Yehovah, which is the nice, kind one. So, if you notice, I didn't translate Elohim as Elohim, it's just God in my translation. Yehovah is Yehovah. Elohim is the one that tells Avraham to sacrifice his son, and Yehovah is the one, or the angel of Yehovah, or messenger of Yehovah, is the one who jumps in and saves the day right before he brings the knife down. Lending credence to that theory.
It's kind of good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, exactly. Or good God, bad God.
Do not make a mark on him. This is the angel. Do not make a mark on him. I now know you truly fear God. You would give everything to me, including your only son.
Only son?
Avraham raised his eyes and saw a ram caught by its horn in a thicket. He took the lamb and sacrificed it to God in place of his son. He called that place Yehovah Yireh, because on that day he said, Yehovah will show us.
Yireh means will show us, but yeah.
Yehovah has sworn, a second angel called out from the sky, in response to you having done this thing, even giving him your only son, that you are surely blessed. Your offspring will be as plentiful as the stars in the sky or the sand on the shores of the sea. Your children shall claim the gates of their enemies. All nations of the land will be blessed on behalf of your seed because you have listened to my voice. Avraham returned to his wards.
No, I wanted to make an awful joke about being blessed on behalf of someone's seed, and it's just too gross, you know?
They got up and went with his wards to Beersheba, where Avraham stayed.
That's chapter 8. Thank you, Julie. That was awesome. That's a crazy one, I think. I say that every time, and it's always a crazy one. The last few have been pretty wild. There were some at the beginning that were just like lists of people's names, but this was a really wacky one. Now, at this point in the show, now that we've finished reading the chapter, we do something called the Davar Torah. Now, Davar Torah is usually like a speech about the Torah, a sermon, if you will, but literally it means word book. So do you have a word book, one single word that you would use to describe this chapter?
Considering you gave me a heads up about this question, I'm drawing a blank. I'm gonna go with the easy answer and say sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Mine, and I came up with it a while ago. Therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's your job to write these things.
Because, this is my, this one, and again, these are not like actual chapter divisions. I made them completely arbitrarily based on how long I want this podcast to last. But this chapter, the first section is probably not a good example of a marriage. And then the second two passages are, Avraham probably really fucking up both of his sons for a really long time. I see a lot of psychiatrist bills in both Ishmael and Yitzchak's
Maybe that's
future.
why they lived so long then, to get to work through all those issues.
Maybe. But, he's not, because it's interesting because we see his great devotion to Jehovah or to Elohim or to God, but he doesn't like his sons much, apparently. I don't know, do you have any final thoughts about this?
I heard a really interesting speech, a Davar Torah that I won't.
A real one?
A real one that I won't, include into the podcast. But the upshot was just that, this whole chapter is known as kind of God testing Avraham.
Yeah.
But what if he actually failed the test? What if him being so willing to sacrifice his son is actually him not doing it right? Maybe. And the angel's like, wait, never mind.
Just kidding.
So, yeah.
I definitely hear that. I think that's a reasonable reading of this. I actually read something before I came over here. I was like looking around on the internet for a few things because I had some thoughts about this. I read this chapter, I read an essay about how there are hints, when he says, we will return. Avraham actually knows what game God is up to, and he knows that God knows that God knows that he knows that he's not going to do it, because it's showing that God, it gets pretty convoluted, but God is so great that he knows that he can do this test to Avram and he will accept it even though it sounds crazy. I just think that Avram screwed up.
It's troubling to say the least.
Yes. I had a theory about this once, and I have no idea if this is accurate. This is based on no research at all. But that part of the reason this is included in the foundational text of Judaism may be to show the disparity between this religion and other possibly dominant religions at the time that did require human sacrifice and people to sacrifice their children, so that these characters, it's they go through all the motions, no, wait, stop, don't do that, that's fucked up.
Absolutely. I mean, when a lot of people are reading the Torah or the Old Testament for the first time, a lot of times there's a lot of really detailed, gory descriptions of animal sacrifices, and it's ooh, but if you think, like you said, about the cultures that were surrounding the Jews at that time, sacrificing animals and not humans was actually an ethical, huge leap. It was an improvement, and the sanctity of life in the Torah is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't have a butcher, because if you ate meat, you probably butchered it yourself, and it was part of this ritual, and that's where your meat came from. So in a way, sometimes, I've had conversations about this. Sometimes animal sacrifice seems like it might be more ethical than the way that we get meat, considering, that we get it from factory farms in this industrialized system of agriculture, and we have no idea what happens to the animals that come to us.
I'm now totally out of I have no idea.
Anyway, those are my final thoughts. Those are Davar Torah. I want to thank you, Julie, for agreeing to be on this show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
This is really cool. Is there anything that you want to tell the listeners about? Any projects that you have coming up that you want to talk about?
Sure. I'm really easy to find on the interwebs. My blog is julie.wordpress.com. I try to update it weekly. Sometimes that happens. I also blog for Lilith Magazine. You can find me on Twitter at Julie Sugar. Just like it sounds, my last name is Sugar. And yeah, that's really the best way to stay up to date with what I'm working on.
Cool. Thank you again for being on the show. I want to go down the list of thank yous. Thank you to the Parkside Lounge for allowing us to be here every month. It's awesome that they give us this space. I want to thank Adam Bozarth and Wendy Chin for creating the 2 posters that were used for this month's episode. I want to thank our audio engineer, John Passaro, for making sure this sounds good. And you guys, thank you for being here tonight. And be sure to join us next month for 2 reasons. First of all, the next episode, episode 9, chapter 9, I should say, is on June 17th, which is my birthday. So I'm going to be celebrating my birthday with the audience of this show. And be sure to join us next month, because next month, in the Bible,
somebody dies.